Hello again everyone, Saka here and welcome to another video, and today I'm trying something a little bit different to see if that's something that my viewers would like to see. We are going to be reacting to the McLaren Unboxed series, which is sort of a behind the scenes look at F1, and I will be approaching it from a NASCAR fan's perspective, pointing out the similarities, differences. At the end of the day, a bunch of engineers are trying to make a machine go as fast as humanly possible, and it's just a different world between Formula One and NASCAR, and I hope to bring a little bit of perspective into this and sort of my reactions to what the McLaren team go through during a race weekend. This is on the McLaren YouTube channel. The link for this video in its entirety will be in the description. So this episode is called Ups and Downs. So we'll be going from the Portugal Grand Prix, and let's get into it. Farnborough. Not sure where Farnborough is. It could be close to McLaren's headquarters, I would say. And that's another thing, too. Here recently, drivers and whatnot have been riding coach. I don't know if the McLaren F1 team charters this plane specifically for the team, or do some of the team members just catch a regular commercial flight. So it's interesting. If you happen to know, leave a comment below. But of course, the McLaren badged luggage, can't go wrong with that. Oh, a Bombardier CRJ 100. A nice regional jet that actually flies nearby. I'm looking forward to it in Microsoft Flight Sim as well. The CRJ is a pretty good local regional jet to fly. I think it holds 45 to 50 people. And when I fly in and out of home here locally, it's always a CRJ that flies me to the bigger cities to connect up to the hub. Oh, and of course, baggage claim. Oh man, don't have your bags lost, especially if you're like a McLaren engineer, especially if like your laptops are in there, you know. If you've got a lot of sensitive information that pertains to that race car and they just happen to lose your baggage, that would not be good, that is for sure. And another thing that I noticed watching these F1 videos is the teams have a building that is like dedicated to themselves. NASCAR, when they show up, they get their garage stall, they have their hauler that can give them sort of privacy. And I noticed that F1, they have like the McLaren building, the Mercedes building, the Renault building, or the Alpine building, as it were. So it's very interesting to see how much infrastructure is built up at the racetrack over the course of a weekend. And is it permanent, or is that like a semi-trailer?
And the nitrous button that you added in.
Oh, that's what all the wiring is. Yeah, I got it.
All good?
All good.
So Danny Rick, I'm hoping for a podium. I saw on Twitter that if he gets on his first podium with McLaren, he gets to drive a Dale Earnhardt race car, and I hope that gets recorded, maybe in this series or on the McLaren channel, or maybe Danny Rick will post something on his social media. But I hope he also takes it to an oval. Any oval will do. Just let that car breathe on its in its native habitat, let's say. It'd be like the equivalent of taking an F1 car to a skating rink and saying, okay, get all you can out of it. It's like, that's not where this car was built for. So in order to get everything out of it, take that car to an oval, please.
Mate, cool. Yeah.
I'm a fan of Lando as well, being a gamer, catching some of his streams and whatnot. He's definitely of the new generation of race car driver. Very social media focused, and oh, the tire blankets. Ah, okay. So speaking of tires and one lug nut, next year NASCAR is bringing their next-gen car, which was actually revealed this week. I don't think it's going to speed up pit stops, as there's no pneumatic jack on the stock car that lifts the entire car up as one unit. Plus, you got to still put in 2 cans of fuel. So I think fuel will be the limiting factor, not the lug nuts on the tires. And these days, guys only change 3 out of the 5 lug nuts most of the race anyway, possibly 4. The only time you have to get all 5 lug nuts on your car is the very last pit stop of the race, or what you think is the last pit stop of the race. Otherwise, the crew chief gets a fine and is asked not to come back the following week. But F1, of course, you don't have to worry about that. And next year, you won't have to worry about that, because if your lug's not on, your tire's coming off. And you'll learn very quickly whether or not you have a loose wheel.
Good at them now anyway. I think the only thing that did change with that pedal is they heat treated the spring, because it was a spring they rushed through just for last week. Yeah. So unless that's changed.
I'll see how it is on track.
You can change it after.
So it's crazy, just the sheer size that the drivers have to work with. Of course, the cocoon has to be as structurally sound as possible. Coming from a NASCAR perspective, the seat itself is very restrictive. There isn't a whole lot of room to move around in a stock car either, but you do have the entire interior of the car for some space, so it won't feel as claustrophobic. But, you know, the stock car guys with their headrests coming out to encapsulate their whole helmet, the rib braces, the brace over the shoulder. The seat is very conformed, just like an F1 seat, made to the driver's specific dimensions, and, you know, very, very restrictive as far as the seats are concerned. You can probably see a lot more out of an F1 car, even with that halo bar right in front of you. A stock car, you've got your A-post, window net, the Earnhardt bar, the three supports that hold the windshield in. I mean, it's just more claustrophobic feeling, I think, on a stock car for sure. Oh, there's the FlowViz. So this is something that you don't see on NASCAR during testing, especially. You see pitot tubes on a stock car during testing. But free practice here in Formula One, putting the FlowViz on, seeing where the air goes. I'm not sure if NASCAR has banned FlowViz or teams just don't use it because the car isn't as aerosensitive, or there's only so many aerosensitive parts on a stock car as opposed to a Formula One car. I haven't seen any stock cars run FlowViz, but very interesting engineering approach for sure. I wonder how tough that stuff is to clean up. Is it sticky? Does it get dirty? Does it pick up track rubber and oil? I haven't seen dirty FlowViz. That's another thing that NASCAR kind of has. The pit boxes, the war wagons have multiple displays with a lot of engineering data, lap times, track map, the SMT data, throttle and brake traces, steering wheel traces, all that good stuff. But it's certainly not 5 or 6 individuals all staring at an individual screen. Formula One seems more of like a space shuttle launch or something of that nature, where every station is its own specialized area. In NASCAR, the crew chief, engineer, they're all looking at the same data together and talking with the driver. So that's definitely a big change for sure. And the pit stops. So NASCAR is not going to have 2.5-second pit stops. That's relegated to F1 for sure. And of course, debriefing. In NASCAR, the driver would either talk to the crew chief in the garage or go back to the hauler, to the front of the hauler. Usually there's like a little conference room set up there where an engineer will have his laptop out, and the driver and crew chief will have a chat on what happened over practice, as well as talking on the radio throughout the runs. But, you know, radio discipline is important, making sure other teams are not listening in on you. So most conversations are done in person.
Because it's quite a bit more open and easy now, I think we've just got to, yeah, every time we come in, I'll just make sure Tom tells me, attack the box.
In Daniel's room. That's crazy.
Here we go.
Of course, your social media obligations, that's the same in NASCAR and Formula One. The drivers will have their weekend booked well in advance to speak to their fans or sponsors, hospitality areas for their sponsors, to talk to employees or family members of employees. So,
currently,
of course, being a driver,
getting close to be ready for
you need to be visible.
and
that's for sure.
I'm just going to basically come on the McLaren channel here, say good day, say what's going on. Where is Lando? I have no idea. Probably next door. Probably next door. All right, I'm going to say goodbye. Adios. Thanks a lot, everyone. Appreciate it. And yeah, be well, be swell. Adios. Now I'm going to figure out how to end this. The power button. All right, see ya.
Don't you go changing Danny Rick. From what I've seen of Daniel, he's a very awesome character. As a person, a really good guy. The honey badger. And maybe Champagne will be drunk out of those soon. Not this particular weekend from what I understand, but soonish, let's hope. And qualifying. So with the latest COVID things, no qualifying in NASCAR last year or this year, it's set by an algorithm that's using your finish from last week, the fastest lap time, owner points, and that sort of thing. All of that gets mashed together in a big spreadsheet, and that sets the starting lineup for the field in NASCAR. Usually it's single car runs. They tried to do group qualifying, but there was, of course, a lot of games, especially at the super speedways, where a drafting partner is absolutely necessary. So at Talladega, for sure, everyone was like, no, you go first, you go first. And the first car in the qualifying group of that pack of cars would be at the bottom of the timesheet because they would be punching a hole in the air. Everyone else would be laying back, trying to time it to where they get the big run down the back straightaway and not past the car in front, but get right to their bumper right at the finish line to give them the highest top speed for that lap. So when they do go back to qualifying, it should be single car qualifying. But group qualifying in Formula One, interesting to see. And next year they announced that there would be group qualifying to set a field for a sprint race. And then the result of that sprint race would set the starting lineup for the race on Sunday, which is interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out for sure.
What am I going to do?
You know what I did? You should do? Turn one, you can go all the way around the outside.
Yeah, I know. Of everyone.
Yeah, you can. And then what you have to do is you just have to honk your horn and get
Come
back
back
in
on.
for turn 3.
Flash the light.
Of course, in NASCAR, if you want to use the horn, it's the chrome horn. Get into them a little bit. Can't do that in a Formula One car for sure. Those front wings are very explodey. But stock car, yeah, just lay into them a little bit, especially at the road courses of Watkins Glen. Sonoma, the first few corners are sweeping, so you don't see a lot of chrome horn at Sonoma. But Austin, Circuit of the Americas is coming up, and the first turn is a very sharp, nearly 180-degree left-hander right after the main straight. So it'll be interesting to see once that race begins how physical the drivers get on that start. Oh, Consuela comes through to stop the exercise. One thing that I noticed is that F1 drivers in between sessions are doing things like that to stay in the zone, if you will. There's like no downtime, so that the reaction time sort of falls off. They're always like throwing balls back and forth. They're doing the light reaction tests where they're hovering their hand over a set of lights and they have to hit it real quick. Stock car drivers, no, when practice is done, you know, they debrief, but I don't think any driver makes an active attempt to, all right, let's get my reaction time up. Let's get in the zone here. It's just get in the car and go.
Does it smell nice or bad?
Yeah, it's not great.
They say they normally don't smell nice at all.
No,
Take your words carefully now, yes?
it's not particularly good today.
Oh, right, thank you.
So what's going on?
So smells in the cockpit. You know, I'm sure the seat inserts might get pretty musty, but it's not unheard of for, say, Dale Earnhardt to put a piece of fish inside Rusty Wallace's car when they were battling for a championship to sort of throw him off the hot Atlanta sun. You know, those greenhouses, stock car, can get pretty hot, 125, 130 inside that cockpit. So if you have a piece of fish just sort of sitting there, it's going to start stinking pretty bad. So, you know, just like, you know, when you're sitting in the car getting ready, the smell might be apparent, but most drivers are able to switch that sort of thing off. And when they get to racing, they get in the zone and everything else just sort of disappears. Drivers have wet themselves. They've crapped themselves, but the job at hand is driving that race car, so you just push through. Just so many people analyzing every instance of that lap. You know, in NASCAR, your engineer would be looking at it, the crew chief would be looking at it, but you don't have like this concerted super team of engineers like analyzing every speck of data. It's just sheer stopwatch. Are you fast or are you not? And if you're not fast, then we'll fix it. But if you're fast, let's just not touch it.
Wouldn't have bet on this today, so just gonna figure it out.
Of course, post-qualifying interviews. Don't see those this year in NASCAR, but next year definitely you'll see the pole sitter doing interviews. If there's a surprise qualifier, someone qualifies up front who doesn't normally qualify well, they'll be talked to, or if someone crashes in qualifying or just misses the mark completely, unexpected, they'll be talked to for sure. But qualifying is mostly a pretty quiet day in the NASCAR garage.
Race day. Always excited for race day. We've got some work to do though. One car at the front, one car in the back. Should make it exciting.
Of course, social media assistant. Drivers these days always have someone with a phone with their account logged in, ready to, you know, usher them to the next interview or to get their thoughts.
So it's really exactly like a roller coaster. It's one thing that I think others could relate to around here.
Garage area shenanigans. This is the stuff that, you know, doesn't get talked about a lot. It's you know, it's a family. The race team is a family. So I'm sure there are tons of pranks being pulled between team members, between other drivers. It's, you know, to lighten the mood because it's a very serious thing that they're doing. But you know, when you're faced with a serious situation, it's good to unwind. It's good to, you know, to play around a little bit, to embrace the moment. I mean, you are at the top level of your motorsport. Enjoy it.
Don't get in our way again.
Ooh.
Whoa, whoa,
And of course, Lando's not going to let that slide.
Do any of you guys have a pen? No. Sharpie or...
His pen failed at the worst time. I'm writing a snarky comment here. Oh man, he's writing a letter.
Something simple.
Who's that going to?
Red Bull.
Fair enough.
Don't start the laps, of course. Not very nice.
You're not sure either way on the grid?
Because they said don't get in our way again.
Right.
Oh,
You're taking it to the grid region and then showing it across.
couldn't have been pole anyway. Yeah, a situation like that, when someone says, hey, you were blocking me, you just say, well, you weren't going to be fast anyway. I was doing you a favor. Was that the Red Bull side that sent that that paper airplane? Right in their office. Oh, there's our seat insert. It's a little thing, but, you know, I would just like to have a seat made for me. Just to see how comfortable it is when you've got a dedicated seat to your butt. Like, how comfy is that? Those freaking air guns, man. When your lug nut is this big around instead of 5 that big around, in fact, I got a NASCAR lug nut here. This is as big as it gets. You know, the size of a quarter. But those freaking honking things, I mean, freaking size of a softball, man.
11.7. Okay, 2 more standard stops in the garage, and that'll be it.
Of course, pit practice is incredibly important. Throughout the week, the pit crews will just do stop after stop after stop. Of course, every stop is recorded from multiple angles. They have a dedicated pit coach that is like an athletic trainer. And at least in NASCAR, the guys that are going over the wall to change tires, most have collegiate backgrounds. They've played football, baseball, soccer. They've been through sports their whole lives. So to have a coach there to get them the reps in, to review footage, very serious. I'm not sure. Are these guys engineers as well? Or are they dedicated pit crew members? And do any of them have athletic backgrounds? Bam. You got one lug nut to hit. Don't screw it up. Ah, the tire blankets. Those are cool. And there we go. Pit review. Down to the 10th of a second, just seeing, you know, where you can tighten your shot group up. Yep, back to the grind.
Yeah, I think it's best just to leave it, otherwise you might end up
The car's going to be like turned off anyway.
Ooh, CCTV.
The kind of the rounds or the approach looks better for 14 and stuff.
Security cameras are my job, so kind of curious what software they use, what cameras they use. Oh, flyovers. Essential to start any race with a flyover. F-16s. Now, I wonder if that was Portugal? Did they provide that, or was that another Air Force? Oh, starting the race. Of course, Formula One won't show any of their actual copyrighted footage here, but reactions from the crew. These guys, you know, in the garage sitting down, ready for their pit stop. In NASCAR, the guys are hanging out by the war wagon. Usually doing in some reps, they have a makeshift hub with lug nuts on it that don't come off, so pit guys can just hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and keep their reps going throughout the race while they're not making pit stops. Some guys are going to refill their fuel cans. Other guys are marking tires. Other guys are gluing lug nuts on. Yeah, that's one question that I have is Formula One, when are the lug nuts designed to where they come out but they stay on the hub, the tire comes off and then they lock? Or do they have an adhesive that when those tires go on, the lug nut is there? It seemed like a pretty heavy lug, but in NASCAR, in fact, there's a little bit of glue residue still around this edge. I don't know if you can see it, but right there is a little bit of glue still left over. Guys will be gluing up tires, or if they run a set of scuffs, they run 1 or 2 laps on them, and they don't want to put on a set of stickers, they will re-glue the lug nuts back on it, put those tires back in rotation for a stop they might need them.
What do you think?
So throughout the race, it's not uncommon to use TV footage to see any damage that you might get throughout the race. Television is really good to zoom in on damage because, you know, the fans want to see the damage too. So by proxy, the crew gets a very good look at if something has bent the splitter or bent a side skirt, or if there's a hole in the nose or something like that. The TV camera will zoom in on that damage to show the fans, and by proxy, the crew can assess the damage on the car before it even comes to pit road, so they know, do they just need bare bond, or is it going to be having to cut that part completely off? So looking at your damage throughout the race or looking at your car throughout the race is important as well. Plugging his headset in. So NASCAR, everyone will have their two-way radios. Crew chief will have 2 or 3 two-way radios on their belt, and they're always plugged in. It looks like these guys have radio stations that they unhook their headset. They can run and plug straight into another headset group. Interesting. Very technologically further along than NASCAR, who, you know, if you have a radio, you got your radio on and you got your headset on. Yep, loosen up, boys. It's almost time to go to work. Ooh. Yeah, injuries on pit road. Sprains and strains, scuffs. Sometimes you get hit by a car. Woof. The over-the-wall crew, no matter what sport you're in, those guys are unsung heroes. And girls, too. So post-race, it's good to keep up morale. It's good as a team to sit down and say, good job. This is what we've done right. This is what we could improve on in the future.
Keeping me warm right now. It's certainly a better day. Just I was able to do what I kind of set out for and overtake some cars and, yeah, have some battles and get rid of some anger from yesterday.
We did a good job. I feel like I did a good job managing the tires and taking the risks when I needed to.
So media bullpen right after the race in NASCAR, they'll talk to the top drivers a bit. If there was a scuffle towards the end of the race, though, they might talk to those drivers involved in that scuffle. And the top 3 drivers have to then go to the media center and talk to the reporter corps there. Of course, the winning car owner and driver and crew chief will all sit and do the post-media stuff. For drivers that finish second or third, it's usually just the drivers themselves. And those sessions are very quick, like, could you have caught the leader? What have you done? What improvements can you do next time? Okay, see ya. Then when the winner comes in, it's much more in depth. talk to me about your entire day. What was the strategy that got you up front? How did you dominate? Were you nervous about so-and-so catching you late in the run, or that last caution threw a wrench in the works? Were you worried? And then, of course, the car owner will talk about how well the guys back in the shop did, and the crew chief will talk about any strategy calls that may have been unorthodox, whether taking 2 tires, no tires, or being the only car to take 4 tires and driving through the front. Those will be questions for the crew chief. Nice. So a rough weekend, it looks like, for McLaren. And, you know, hopefully they can get it turned around next week. But, you know, props to these guys, their entire crew, from their hauler drivers to their engineers to the folks back at the shop building these things. You know, top level of your motorsport is no joke. A lot of time and a lot of money goes into it. And I'm glad that McLaren sort of gives this behind the scenes look at the drivers and the teams throughout each weekend. And I was, you know, I wouldn't be opposed if NASCAR did something like this to highlight, you know, it doesn't matter which team. I'm just interested to see, you know, a little bit behind the scenes throughout the weekend, what the teams sort of mention, talk about, you know, see what the crew guys do when the drivers are off doing something else. But if you like this style of video, let me know. I can definitely comment on more racing videos, whether it be NASCAR or Formula One or whatnot, just to give NASCAR perspective. And like, share, and subscribe if you are so bold. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.